Super excited to be about 2 hours north of the proving grounds this morning with Will and Drew. They bought this property in 2016, 15. I visited in 2018. Drew had already been behind the chainsaw, cut some cedars, was just getting started on some of that native habitat. Come along. It's going to be a great day. We're going to check out native habitat, talk hunting strategies, get an update from Will and Drew. I was on this property in January of 2018, and I gotta tell you, it's night and day difference, literally, because this area, this was one of the first areas we came to during that first initial tour.
Down this hill real quick.
And it was chock full of eastern red cedars, and there was hardly any sunlight reaching the ground. And a couple spots where they'd started felling some cedars, and there was sunlight hitting the ground, there were some great native species coming up just with that little sunlight. And I told him, I said, Will, Drew, you start cutting some cedars, keep on going, and this will turn out amazing. And sure enough, we've got a lot of sunlight reaching the ground and some high quality habitat for deer and turkey. This area is looking great, but it hasn't had a growing season fire in here yet. And I'm recommending that Will and Drew get a growing season fire in here during the next fire. The next opportunity to drop a match in here should be a growing season fire, because we've got a lot of fragrant sumac coming up and it's starting to shade out the ground underneath, and it's going to be tougher and tougher to get a fire to carry through here. So we want to set this sumac back and some of the other hardwoods that are coming up, and that growing season fire is a great tool to do that. Get even more sunlight to the ground, get more of those grasses and forbs, which is great food for those deer and turkeys. And those forbs also are great cover for those turkey poults. This is great, but we can improve it even a little more during our fire rotation. So let's get a fire in here during the next opportunity and try to set back some of these hardwoods.
You can see the river bottoms open up, and Drew and I have done a massive amount of camping.
We've been talking about native habitat, and they've done a lot of great work improving the native habitat, and that's food and cover for turkeys, quail, deer. But hunting, you mentioned, we came down here and I mean, I remember being down in this bottom when we were first here, and it was thick, and we walked down here and I go, oh my word, this has changed. And just tell me what opening up, not only do we have habitat all around us, but what's it done for your hunting?
Well, it's given us the ability to see much more wildlife than we did before, because we now have a much higher perspective. But we also have avoided the thermal problems that we had trying to hunt down in the bottoms.
Yeah.
And while this is primarily a muzzle loader and a rifle blind, the ability to scout here and to take advantage of the deer movement and knowing where they're coming in and how we can pattern them, whereas we couldn't do that before.
Yeah.
So now we can plant different species. We can do spring and fall planting of different seeds and plants for we might put radishes in one year, and we might put in a mix of kale and triticale or wheat or oats, but it'll be different in this field than it is over on the far field. The nice thing is I've got a 170-yard shot to that back corner and up to 250 in the far corner, but we also have a much closer range right behind us.
Yeah, and you're not only covering the plots, but the native habitat. And then you were talking about watching deer over on that point.
We can see deer over on the next ridge now where we had no idea where they were moving. Yeah. We can now see the deer coming through the native, the grasses and the forbs down here in the bottom. That used to be completely covered with timber. So if they're coming off of the neighbor's property onto ours, many times we can see them working through the grass, and they're not keyed up. They're very, it's normal for them. They are not looking for predators or anything, because it's just very calming and they don't feel the pressure.
You mentioned, we were talking about a hunt off camera here, and you mentioned you were sitting in this blind and you saw a buck over here.
Yep.
And then the next day, I think there was even a shot taken.
There was a shot, a miss.
Clean miss.
A clean miss.
But a shot taken.
Yeah.
And you slipped out, and then you said that deer was harvested the next day?
The next morning,
right down here.
He was over on that next ridge, and I could see him 200 yards through the timber. And then the next morning, he was cruising through here after his night of, it was during the rut. He came in through here, and one of our guests shot him right in the same corner.
And I think that is a huge testament to this hunting location. You have a clean entry and exit.
Yep.
And that deer, even though he was shot at, he did not associate the area with the scent, and he felt comfortable still staying in this area.
It didn't chase him out of his home range.
Yeah.
And I don't think he ever sensed that we were here.
Yes. So he didn't smell you, and you were able to get out of here without alerting deer in this area, and he felt very comfortable just staying here. He had great cover as well to be here. So.
Well, the one thing I'd also add is you've got to experiment, because we've learned so much about the way the wind works. Oh, yeah. And this is probably the 4th location for this particular stand. And we knew we were trying to be very strategic in placing it here, because we were working the ridge top, and we realized that we had a view, but we also knew we had a ton of work.
Yes, yes. And it's changed. So when there was a closed canopy, the air swirled more.
Yeah.
It would have swirled more down here.
Yep.
And now that you've opened this up, we were talking, when that sun comes up in the fall over the ridge here, it warms this side up, and those thermals start rushing up. So you're overlooking an area where your thermals are getting up and out of here.
Yeah.
And that's totally changed from what it was, where it probably used to swirl really bad in here.
Yeah, we literally couldn't hunt this corner of the property, so we had to come up with another plan. And we know that it's hard hunting down low.
Yes.
Archery is a different animal, but we think it's the ideal spot.
Yeah, I love this. Well, we're gonna keep on going, looking at native habitat, looking at hunting locations. I'm really excited to see Drew and Will's work, and they've done some really good work. So we're gonna keep on going and see what we find. We're standing on the property line. This is Will and Drew's neighbor, and you can tell it's closed canopy forest, nothing growing at that ground level for those deer and turkey, quail, and other critters. But right across the property line where they've started doing a lot of TSI and really getting a lot of sunlight to the ground, huge difference. We were just up on that ridge. It is open, and we have great habitat. When you're a deer or turkey and you need that cover or that food, are you gonna be in here, or are you gonna be over there? When there's not acorns, when they're not seeking acorns, which it's anyone's game, whether they're on the neighbors or your property, that's one thing. But when there's no acorns, when they need that food and cover, this is the property they're gonna spend more time on than this closed canopy forest.
Growing Deer is brought to you by Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's. Also by Green Cover Food Plots, Winchester, PH Outdoors, Moultrie Mobile, Steel, Fleet Outdoor Apparel, Morel Targets, Fourth Arrow, Scorpion Venom Archery, Case IH Tractors, Ward Laboratories, Burris Optics, G5 Broadheads, Prime Bows, and Redneck Hunting Blinds.
We recently shared a video where we visited a property where we implemented a logging plan to open up the canopy and get more sunlight to the ground in pines. Pines are fairly easy to manage because you can use that one-time treatment of imazapyr. Hardwoods take a little more work. And let me tell you, Drew can tell you about the work, and he has done a great job, because right behind us, he's terminated hardwood trees, the low-quality trees, and we've got sunlight reaching the ground and lots of quality habitat growing, food and cover. So I just want to first off say, well done, Drew. You've done an incredible job.
It's been a labor of love. It's kind of interesting. You didn't realize you were going to get that deep into it, and yet here it is. And it's been a lot of work, but it's been enjoyable.
A lot of time on the steel.
Yes.
And I mean, this was all closed-canopy forest. It was leaf litter underneath, right?
Yes,
There
correct.
wasn't anything. When we first walked this ridge, I mean, it was just
high canopy. High canopy, no food on the ground.
Yep.
No cover either.
Walk me through the process of what you did here.
What we did is we just got up there, and any low-grade trees, we took them down. And then
what were you calling low-grade trees? How were you making that selection?
Were they unhealthy oaks? Were they maples? We took down maples. Any cedars, we took down. Any sycamores, various other trees, a lot of pig nuts, we'd take down the pig nuts too. Anything that didn't offer food. And
so you were looking at species.
Very much looking at species.
And even within the species, you were looking at the health of the tree.
And also within let's say oaks, we were preferring any form of white oak, whether it be a swamp white, a true white, a burr, or a chinquapin. And then if there weren't any of those around, then we'd start going after various types of reds and black oaks. But then we also had to look at what is the health of the actual tree itself. Were there any cat eyes in it? Meaning there's probably it's hollow on the inside. Also, because the property had been high grade timbered, and we looked for plunge cuts. If the tree had a plunge cut, which is a little mark about that long, it's where they stick the blade into the trunk, and if they found that it was hollow, they just leave the tree. Well, the tree will grow over it. That will tell you, though, it's a low-grade tree and probably needs to be removed if you're trying to get more sunlight to the ground, which was the baseline of what we were looking for.
And that may sound really complicated.
It's not.
It's not. I mean, as you're cruising, how fast are you making these decisions?
When we first started, we didn't know what we were doing. I'll be the first to admit. By the end, I can recognize a tree by the bark in the dead of winter. I can tell the difference between various vines, whether it be a Virginia creeper, a grapevine, or poison ivy. Just by glancing at it, you can tell. And the same way goes, during the dead of winter, when we like to do the bulk of our cutting after deer season. Girdle or dropping. One of the two. Because during the winter, you're not dealing with ticks, chiggers, heat, mosquitoes, any of that kind of stuff. It's actually I enjoy it much more during the winter. Yeah. I've had ice hanging off of my shield before, but you know what? I was comfortable.
And doing good work.
You're doing real good work. Yeah.
I came around the corner and I saw this ridge, and my first instinct was, oh my word, that's beautiful. Because it's just green. There's little flowers out there, wildflowers, and when you start really looking, but I mean, it's just lush and green, and it looks so productive compared to the neighbor's property that's just brown right now and dark. And we've got sunlight going through there. You can tell the breeze. We're down in this bottom, right? And the breeze is very consistent. We can see that wind traveling up through there, so the hunting's a lot better because that wind's consistent. We're carrying our scent away from where we suspect deer are.
It also helps, it gives lots of cover for fawning.
Yes, and turkey poults.
Yeah, for us, it makes it a better place all around for wildlife.
How many times have you burned this area?
I think we've burned it 3 times now. We burned it this year.
So you burned this dormant season.
Yes.
And this is what's come back.
Yep, it comes
and
back.
Here we are, beginning of June, prime fawning and brooding season. Turkey poults are running around. I mean, this is high quality cover. And you didn't burn the whole property though. You had some areas.
We had some areas where we burn. We try to keep it on a schedule where you're burning about 1/3 of the property every year.
So you always have cover, you always have food somewhere on the property.
Right, trying to leave some on there, but for the most part, we like the fire is such a effective way to clear the land of all the past growth.
Yeah.
And make sure there's good food coming afterwards and good cover afterwards. It also sets everything back to kind of start over. Otherwise, you're going to get cedars, you're going to get a bunch of undesirable species. Long term, it's not good. Fire's good.
Had you had fire experience before you started burning here on the property?
Not intentional.
So your first fire in some of these areas, you had a high fuel load of cedars.
Yes.
You had a really hot, kind of a big fire.
We did for the first ones when we had all of that fuel load from the cedars that we'd wiped out. We did hire that out because it was beyond what we were capable of.
But you joined them on the fire, right?
Yes, we were there.
You learned fire behavior. You were watching.
We've also taken classes on how to do it, and we have we now have more experience. And fire, I mean, a lot of people are afraid of it. Yes, it needs to be. You need to respect it, but it's an excellent tool for anyone that's doing land management. Can't stress that enough.
We've terminated trees. We've put fire in, and we have high quality habitat. And it sounds simpler than that, but it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
And it's paying off.
Yeah. We enjoy it. It's a labor of love. We've enjoyed watching it progress, become much more advantageous to the animals, to any wildlife, flora and fauna, and it's fun to peruse the property as we move around and explore to see what you're going to see, because we see stuff we'd never seen before.
Tell me about your turkey population. What's happened through the years? What have you seen?
Well, when we first got here, turkeys, we would see them now and again. We had certain areas that we knew, okay, they're probably going to be hanging out there, but we didn't really have, I think, a very large turkey population. Now we have a much larger turkey population. We see them, especially during deer season, when they'll group up. We'll see them moving around, and we just, when we're now hunting, we'll have on the property, we'll have 5 to 6 toms responding when they're responding. You'll hear, there are only a couple that you can get to, but you'll hear them, and you can know, we've had 4 or 5 guys hunting on here, and everybody's at least seen some action.
Wow.
So yeah, the turkey population has done well.
And I asked if you were trapping, and you've kind of backed off trapping a little bit. You're not. We
still trap, but we just don't have success. I mean, we use the dog-proof traps, and it's just to eradicate, and we'll get, 2 to 3 raccoons a year, and that's it.
It seems like you've kind of knocked them back a little bit, but you're not trapping 100+ critters like crazy.
No, we have them out there. If they were there, we'd be knocking them off. But
you have so much habitat to help those turkeys make nests, let them hatch and get them through the brooding season.
Yeah.
The habitats, from what you've done and are seeing, the habitat's really playing into that turkey population.
We'd like to think yes.
Yeah. I believe it's right there. Yeah.
That was the goal. The goal was just to increase the carrying load on the property of the wild flora and fauna. And sometimes it requires some chainsaw and a lot of time. But it's a labor of love, definitely.
Drew and Will have done incredible work. Super impressed by their work, and the habitat it speaks for itself. And I'm so proud of them.
Thank you.
Because if it's just the grass, there's no value nutritionally for the deer or the turkey in there.
Will and I were just driving by this area. This is an area, this is what, 5 acres, 6 acres?
Yeah, about 6 acres.
He's planted in native grass. You have
switchgrass, we've got little blue stem and big blue stem. Yep.
3 very common native grasses that folks plant. You drilled this.
Yep.
This is year 4. It's about to really come on. It's thick, looks really good for native grass. And right here we've done TSI and have opened it up. We've got native grasses and forbs that have, made seed and dropped seed specifically on site. So they've evolved for this site. I'm gonna let Will tell you what he told me as we're driving down the road here, looking at native grass and over here. So this is all Will. I did not put him up to this. So tell me what you said.
So we drilled this warm season grass with the idea that it would become a bedding area, an internal bedding area for the deer. And what we have found is that the deer don't use it as a bedding area. Rarely do we flush a deer actually out of the warm season grass. We know it's too tall for the turkeys. So the problem is it's in the middle of the property, and if it's not producing food, if it's not producing bedding, then we have to ask ourselves, how do we repurpose it? What are we going to do? It's beautiful grass. It just hasn't done what we hoped it would accomplish for us.
Is this, would you say, more productive?
Oh, this is way more productive.
And see more animals.
You see more animals in this than you do in the grass. We never see animals other than at night on the trail cameras coming through. It may make them more comfortable at night. I don't know, because it's easier to walk through, but it doesn't produce any nutrition. I'd rather have this than that, or I'd rather have that than this, because the deer and the wildlife are getting value from it. This is fantastic, and it looks pretty, but it doesn't really have a purpose anymore.
Thank you for being honest, Will, because I think so many people think native grass, we want to get real grass heavy, and just quite candidly, this was pretty expensive to establish.
It was.
I mean, native grass seed costs a lot, and with just a little, fuel cost and a little sweat, we got really productive habitat over here and a lot more diversity of both food and cover that critters are using throughout the year, and not just this monoculture of grass, or one or two species.
It seemed like a good idea at the time, and we wanted to provide more diversity on the property, but the intended purpose wasn't met.
Comparing that native grass to more diversity of just getting sunlight to the ground and letting what's there grow. Really, imagine a poult trying to get through.
They can't. That's the problem. It's not clumpy. It's really pretty consistent.
And we get those heavy dews here. Yeah. I mean, it'll bog critters down, those poults, chicks.
And ultimately it choked out our Forbs, the other, because we had a lot of flowering Forbs that were part of the mix that we put in. So year one, they were pretty good, and the subsequent years, they've pretty much been non-existent.
Yeah, there can be a place for this, but I hope you listen to some of that wisdom that Will's experienced just in the field and what he's seen on his property. Well, guys, I gotta tell you, I was really impressed by your work. You've done a lot of great habitat work. Congratulations. And not only visually when I go out there and see it, but I mean, the results kind of speak for themselves on camera and what we saw today. But you're here year round, and you get to see it through hunting season and fawning and nesting season. And here we're standing against a wall of bucks you guys have harvested here through the past couple of years. Just kind of tell me what you've seen on the hunting side of things through the years as your habitat's improved.
The only bad year that we had was the year where the acorn drop was really strong. And it wasn't just us, it was the neighbors, it was everybody else. That was the only bad year, but we have seen the deer quality improve dramatically.
Are you seeing an increase in deer compared to, I mean, now that you have habitat, when there aren't acorns?
It's rare if we send out 4 or 5 hunters and everybody doesn't see animals. Almost everybody who's been here has had success, and they enjoy it. And I think that probably means more than anything is that everybody has a great time.
And you guys were harvesting, you said you eat a lot of venison. Yep. You guys are harvesting, doing a lot of work on the harvest side. What, like 20 does or some years?
I think we've had 3 years over 18 harvested. But the ratio will be...
Are you seeing those body weights?
So we did. The biggest doe we've ever shot here was 157 pounds. She's big. I think the biggest buck that we've shot is 203.
Wow.
And what we did notice is about 2/3 of the way, or about the last 2 years, the ratio is much closer to 1 to 1. And because of that, we've seen way more broken antlers than we've anticipated.
More intense fighting. The rut's more intense.
Rut is way more intense, and that makes it more fun.
Yeah, and you're seeing more bucks because they're having to move more.
Absolutely.
There's so many good things going on here. And I just congratulate you guys on the job well done. And folks, hardwoods, this has been a project. These guys have done a really good job turning their hardwoods from that closed canopy, that biological desert we talk about, into really high productive habitat that also increases hunting opportunities. It's working.
Thank you. Appreciate the time and energy you guys have put into it, and the opportunity to share the story.
Absolutely. I hope this encourages y'all to improve habitat where you live and hunt. But no matter what, whether you're working on habitat improvement projects or just getting outside and enjoying a walk, I hope you slow down this week, enjoy creation, but no matter what, listen to the Creator and the purpose He has for your life. Thanks for watching Growing Deer.